think it... You little son of a... Haha! What is up, everyone? My name is Max Curry, and I'm the creator of Death Cassette Games. Okay, starting over. And this is part 2 of Landscape Deformation. Yeah, if you've been following along, you know where we're at. If you didn't watch the first video, then this isn't going to make any sense. So yeah. Roll the intro. Alright guys, we are in UE, or Unreal Engine. We're in edition 5.3. You probably recognize the sandbox world that we created to test all of our systems. In our last video, we set up this landscape as well as the landscape material, which we left looking something like this. We created a depth check that we left looking like this, and our render capture, which had a bunch of stuff into it. And we left it looking like this. And what this did was it created these pink blobs around our feet. I don't know how well you can see. It's kind of hard from farther away. But basically anything that's got custom depth render pass enabled on it, it is showing that by being captured by the render target blueprint. And what we're going to do is the second part of that. So we're going to expand that blob a little bit, and we're going to create a persistent texture to, you know, keep track of our movement. So let's get into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into our landscape. So what we want to do is we're going to duplicate our texture sample. Drag it over here, and we're going to convert this to a texture object. Then we're going to get kind of an expensive node. It's called Spiral Blur Texture. Alright, and we're going to plug in our texture here, and off of this divide we're going to plug it into our UVs. And now we need some scalar parameters for this section here. For each one of these attributes. So we're going to hold S and click, and we're going to name this one distance. And we're going to hold S, do it again. And this one's going to be distance steps. Another one for radial steps, and one more for kernel steps. Yeah, sure. All right. This value we're going to set to 0.01. This one we're going to set to 8. And this one 4, and we're just going to leave this kernel steps at 0. You want these to be as low as you possibly can because this is kind of an expensive node. But yeah, and we'll just plug them in where they go. Distance to distance, distance steps to distance steps, radial to radial steps, and then kernel to kernel power. And then we're going to mask it, and we're going to mask it on the R channel. Multiply. And we need another scalar parameter. We're going to call this one mask multiplier. That's how you spell that. Plug that in here, and we're going to set this value to 3.8. Okay. And then we need to clamp. Keep it between a value of 0 and 1, and then we're going to plug that clamp into the multiply. Let's tidy this up a little bit. I'm just going to leave this texture sample here for now. All right. So you can apply and save, and now our blob is a little bit bigger. Cool. Yeah, much bigger. Good. Okay. Now what we need to do is go into our textures folder, and we're going to create a new runtime texture. Where is it at? Sorry, render target. We're going to call this one RT_RM. And we're going to call it persistent. Okay. And now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to create a new material. What are you barking at? All right, we're going to call this one draw persistent. All right, I'm gonna open that up. Get a little freak out there from the engine. All right, okay. So the first thing we want to do is we want to change this shading model to unlit, and then we're gonna get a texture coordinate, and from this we are gonna get an add. So now we need to get a constant 4. We're going to promote this to a parameter. We're going to call it offset. And then from here, we're going to mask it to the R and G. And then we're going to get a multiply. Now for the multiply, we're going to get another constant, but we're going to get a vector 2, or a 2 vector, sorry. And we want this to be -1 on the X and 1 on the Y. Plug it into the B, and then plug that into our add. Now, in the last video, we set up this custom node right here in our landscape material. So we're going to copy that, and we're going to paste it in here. Just like this. And from this, we're going to get a multiply. And we're going to get a texture sample. Just like we do in our landscape. And we're going to set it to our the render target. So we want this render target capture. Plug in our UVs, plug this in here, and just plug that straight into the emissive color. Apply and save. All right, so we want to go back to our blueprint for capture. We're on the event graph. And what we're going to want to do here is create dynamic material instance. And we want to reference our draw to persistent. And then we want to promote this return value to a parameter that we are going to call draw material. Now, last time we created this move capture function and this macro, but we need a new function that we're going to call draw to persistent. And we're going to drag our draw material in here. And off of that, we're going to set vector parameter value. Plug that bad boy in right there. And we're also going to call this one offset. We're going get our move offset. We're going to divide it. We're going to drag our scene capture in here, and we're going to get ortho width, and we're going to plug that in here. We're going to split this struct pin, and we're going to split this struct pin, and the X goes into the R, and the Y goes into the G. Now we're going to get our draw material and draw material render target. Plug that in here, and then our render target, or our texture render target, is going to be our persistent. Okay, file and save that. Now we can go back to our event graph, and off of our event tick, we can, what is it? Draw to persistent function. Just drop that in there. Okay, file, save. Now we need to go back to our depth check. Okay. Disconnect this. We need to get a add and a texture sample. And we're going to make this texture sample the persistent as well. And we're going to plug that into the add. We're going to get a saturate and plug that into the emissive color. Apply and save. This is all going to keep track of our location, or our previous locations, and all of our movement. And now now that we've set this up, if we go back to our BP capture off of this event graph, we can get clear render target, and we're going to set this one to the capture. We'll duplicate it and change this to the persistent. So now it's just it's going to clear them once it's done doing what it does. Compile and save, and now it's keeping track of our footprints as we run. And it's getting rid of them when we move off of the scene. Pretty neat. Now, this is only going to work on the landscape. It's not going to work on any of the meshes, at least not yet. I haven't figured that out. Maybe someday. We'll figure it out. I don't know that it necessarily matters, but for right now, we're more worried about the landscape. So the next thing that we want to do is actually build the deformation. So there's a couple of things you need to do. First thing you need to do is go to Edit and Project Settings, and then you want to look for Virtual. And what you're looking for is this right here. Enable virtual texture support. Now, when you check this box, it's going to ask you to restart your engine. But before you do, what you also want to do is go into your plugins, and you're going to want virtual height. Oop. You're going to want to enable virtual height mesh as well. Once you've done that, it's going to restart, do its thing, rebuild the shaders. It's whatever. But then once you get back in here, we're going to go back into our landscape material. Take these two guys right here, chuck them up here. And we're gonna add a new color. So 3 vector. We're gonna pretend it's snow because all of the tutorials are on snow. So we're gonna make a whitish gray color. Okay. Disconnect these guys, and we're gonna put this in here. And then we're gonna come off of this and we're gonna do a multiply. We're gonna plug our brown color into this, and then we're gonna plug this into our lerp. We should be getting a similar reaction, just like we did with the pink and the brown, except now, hey look, there's snow. Cool. All right, so now that we've got that, what we're gonna wanna do is, since you've turned on Runtime Virtual Texture support, we're gonna go into our texture folder, and we are going to create a runtime virtual texture, and we're going to call this one RVT height. We're going to duplicate it, and we're going to call this one material. Now you want to open the height, and you want to, right here where it says virtual texture content, you want to change that to world height. Save that. Now what we're going to do is go back to our landscape material, and we're going to do some tricky stuff. Okay. First thing I want to do is I'm going to click on this. This is our material. And down here in the details panel, we're going to use material attributes. We're going to check that. Now off of our lerp, what we want to do is make material attributes. We're going to plug this back into our landscape material, and then we want to get a break material attributes. So now what we can do is do a runtime virtual texture output and plug our guy in right there. Now you can plug everything in, specular and normal. We don't have anything plugged into those on our input, but that's okay. So off of specular, you're going to get a multiply. We're going to set this to just like 5. Should be fine for now. And then we want to get another multiply. And we're going to, this 1 minus that we have over here that's plugged into our alpha, we're going to drag that guy over here and plug it into our B. Okay. Then we're going to get an add and a world position. Off of the world position, we're going to mask it on the blue because the blue is equivalent to the Z, which is height. We're going to plug that into the add. And now that we've got this all set up, we're going to move this over a little bit. That's fine, whatever. And then we're going to plug this into our world height. Apply and save. Cool. So now we're going to go to our viewport, and we want to, hey, look at that. We want to select our landscape, and in the details, we're going to search for virtual. If it'll catch up, virtual. And we're going to add 2 draw in virtual textures. And we're going to select the ones we just created for height and material. So now what we want to do is we want to add a runtime virtual texture volume. We'll just drop it in here. And we need to set the scale and the location. Now, sometimes you can set the bounds. So like I could come in here and select the landscape and set the bounds. I think the problem with this, somebody said that it was buggy and they didn't understand why. I think it has to do with the landscape streaming proxy. So instead of having a single actor for our landscape, I'll show you. So we've got our landscape here. So I think it has to do with the fact that instead of it just being a single landscape mesh, it's because we have all these streaming proxies that it won't let us just set the bounds based off of the landscape. Anyway, what that means is we have to change this guy. Now, I've got this map set up at a weird scale, so I'm just going to set this at 55,000 and 55,000. And we're going to set the height to like 2,000. Let's set the Z to 0. And now we need to go to our top view. And we're just going to move it over like that. Cool. All right. Now that we've got that, we're going to rename it. So, runtime virtual texture volume height. And now we're going to duplicate it. And we're going to rename this one. Damn it. We're going to rename this one material. Okay. And let's set, so for our height volume, we're going to set the virtual texture to our height virtual texture. And for our material volume, we're going to set our virtual texture to material. All right. Now what we need to do is add one more thing. And this is a virtual height. It's a height field mesh. And we created this, or this is the plugin that you created. So for this guy, we want to do the same thing that we did with our virtual texture volumes. So we're going to just go back to our height and copy the location and paste that in there. Same thing with our scale. Didn't mean to do that. All right. So all three of them match. Now, we're going to set the virtual texture to our height. And we're going to click build. Save. And it's going to do this thing for an extended period of time. All right. Now, before we move on, we're going to search for hidden, and we're going to turn off actor hidden in editor. Oh no! So the reason it looks like this is because we don't have a material, but we're going to set one up. I don't know if you remember, if you saw the last video, we created this collection, this material parameter collection. So go in there. We have a scalar value in here. I don't know if I covered this in the last one. We want to make sure that this is set to 25. Now, we want to create a new material. We're going to call this one Virtual Height Map Landscape. We're going to go in here and we're going to add a virtual texture sample. And we want to set that to be our runtime virtual texture material. Plug the base color in, normals, specular, all good stuff. apply and save. We can go back to our landscape, or our height map, and we're going to plug in that material. All right, now we've got our snow. So now that we've got that, let's check it out. Let's see what we got going on. It's not really giving us anything. That's okay. So we're going to go back into our material here. This is our virtual material. And what we're going to do is, from our landscape, we're going to take this color. We're going to plug it in. We're going to plug that in right here. We're going to add a multiply. And we're going to plug the base color in right here. Now, we also want to get our render target calculation spiral blur thingamabob down here, all this crap. And we're going to copy that. And we're also going to paste that in right here. Maybe move it over this way so it's not crowding everything. And then we're going to get a lerp. And we're going to plug that into our alpha. We're going to plug the base color in here. Plug that in like so. And then off of this 1 minus, we're also going to multiply. We're going to get our collection. So this is our material parameter collection capture, and we're going to reference our height. We're going to plug that into our multiply. We're going to multiply one more time, running out of room. And we're going to get a vertex normal world space. We're going to plug that into our multiply, and we're going to put that into our world position offset. Notice how this material ball got much bigger. So now we're in the snow, and you can see it is, oh, I know what the problem is. Wrong color. Much better. All right. So now we got some nice snow trails. And I think that's going to do it for this one, guys. So be sure to like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram at Death Cassette Games, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.